And thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be here. So this is part of a joint work with Peter Scholze. And the origin of the problem is the following. This show up in our joint work is that there is no good notion, a priori, of smooth morphisms of perfectoid spaces or diamonds, if you want more generally. In fact, everything is perfect in this world, and thus there is no tangent space, no Jacobian criterion a priori. Thus we are a little bit lost when we work with perfectoid spaces and we want to speak about smoothness. And the reason we want to speak about smoothness in this joint work with Scholze is that we need to give a meaning to sentences like that, like the following. So we put some brackets. Bungee is smooth of dimension 0. That's what is Bungee here. This is the stack, the perfectoid stack of principal G bundles on the curve. This curve we define and study with Fontaine. Okay? Thus we really need to give a meaning to sentences like that. Plus, we really need to construct some smooth charts of this stack, this perfectoid stack. Bungee, that's here this is smooth. Where U, let's say, is a diamond or a perfectoid space. Thus we need to give a meaning to the sentence as we have a smooth chart of this stack. Okay? And here is the solution I will speak about. Thus we work with cohomological smoothness. Thus, as it appears in the article by Scholze et al., Cohomology of Diamonds. Thus I will pass some time to recall what it means. Thus, roughly speaking, this means that relative Poincaré duality holds. Okay? Thus, we have a good notion of cohomological smoothness in terms of saying that relative Poincaré duality holds in et al. Cohomology. And with Scholze, we found some Jacobian criterion. Yes?
What do you mean relative?
You have a morphism of things and then F upper shrink. I will speak about this. Thus, you have a Jacobian criterion for cohomological smoothness of, let's say, as a particular case, but we have more general things, algebraic diamonds. That's what is an algebraic diamond. Let's put some brackets, like that. This is something that is Zariski closed. Zariski closed. inside what we call a Banach-Kolmez space. You see, in classical algebraic geometry, the analog of Banach-Kolmez spaces are affine spaces. Okay, so you have the Zariski closed subset inside an affine space. You have a Jacobian criterion of smoothness. And here we have something quite analog where we replace affine spaces by Banach-Kolmez spaces. Okay. Let me begin with some background on cohomological smoothness, as you will find in étale cohomology of diamonds. Thus we need, we speak about étale cohomology, thus we need some coefficients, lambda. This is z mod n, with n prime to p. Thus we work with L-adic étale cohomology, torsion here. Okay, and let's say x, this is what Schulze calls a small V stack. Just quickly said, what is it? What is a small V stack? I mean, a stack, a V stack, here. This means a stack on perfectory spaces of characteristic P. That is to say, a sheaf, a functor in groupoids on characteristic P perfectory spaces, equipped with this V topology introduced by Schulze, which is some kind of analog of the FPQC topology in the world of schemes. Okay, thus we have this stack, and this smallness abstention, what does it mean? This means that this is covered in the V topology sense, U, that this is a V cover here, okay, by a perfectoid space U. And there is another assumption, is that the diagonal of your stack is covered too by a perfectoid space in the following sense. There is a V surjection, a V cover of the fiber product of this chart for the V topology by a perfectoid space. This is a perfectoid space. Okay. Just to give you some indication, if you read étale cohomology of diamonds, why do you do this type of hypothesis? Because now we can speak about V sheaves. Once you have such a small V stack, you can speak about V sheaves on this stack. And using those type of charts U and V, those are Cartesian. So this is really important. We really work with Cartesian sheaves on a simplicial perfectoid space. Okay, there is this complicated notion of V sheaf on a stack, but using those type of hypotheses, the smallest hypothesis, you can reduce everything to Cartesian simplicial sheaves on perfectoid spaces. Okay? Thus we have a good notion of a V sheaf on such a stack. Let me give you some example. You take Bungee. This stack of G bundles on the curve. Principal G bundles on the curve. Okay? And then you can use Schulze's Biederam affine Grassmannian. Like that. This is a V cover given by Bowie-Laszlo uniformization. Uniformization by the Billerham van Grassmannian. And this one is an end diamond, according to Scholze. And using such type of a V cover by end diamonds, coupled with the fact that the diagonal of Bungee is representable by a locally partial diamond, that's a nice algebraic space for the pro-étale topology. You deduce that you have some nice perfectoid charts like that, U and V, and that this stack of G bundle is a small V stack. Okay? Thus you can reduce all problems about Bungee to simplicial objects like simplicial diamonds and stuff like that. Okay, thus now let's speak about cohomology a little bit. Thus Scholze has a definition of étale complexes in this setting. Thus I take X to be a small V stack like here, like that. And he has the following definition. You would like to speak about étale complexes of sheaves, but of course we are working in a V stack setting, and there is no étale topology on X. Thus here is Scholze's solutions. He defined a triangulated category of étale complexes with coefficient in lambda. Those are V sheaves, complex of V sheaves. Just when I don't indicate it, this means V sheaves. Such that, so we really need to come back to the world of étale cohomology and not FPQC or V topology, which is too big for cohomological computations. Thus that each time I put it back to some U that is what we call a strictly totally disconnected perfectoid space. Those are the simplest perfectoid spaces you can imagine. But each time you put back like that, as you look at, you pull back of your V sheaf, a complex of V sheaves. This is a complex of étale sheaves. Okay? Thus, there is a way to mix this V topology with the étale topology, and this is Scholze's solution, and it works very well. Unbounded. The stack is not quasi-compact. Bungee is not quasi-compact, so you really need to work with unbounded complexes. Okay. And here, I have to say that D U hat, this derived category of étale sheets with coefficient in lambda on this perfectoid space, is inside the same category for the V topology via a projection, via some projection from the V topology to the étale topology. Okay, you can project the V topos to the étale topos, and there is some pullback. The cell calls is new, and here this is pullback from étale to V. Okay, you have an injection like that. Okay. Thus you have a nice, also you don't have an étale site of such an object like Bungee or X more generally. You have a nice system of coefficients with respect to the étale topology. And, okay, Oui.
This is fully faithful?
This is fully faithful. This is part of the basic result you will find in étale cohomology of diamonds. Okay. And one other remark, this is a good definition in the sense that using some Bayes change result is that if X is a localist partial diamond, then d hat of X with coefficient in lambda is the same as the derived category of étale sheaves of lambda modules on X. Okay? Okay, is there something? Oh, thus, we have nice étale coefficients on such an object. And now, Scholze defines relative compactly superted cohomology in this setting. Yes. How does it work? Thus, we will start now with a representable morphism between two such stacks. And I will give a meaning to what it says that relative Poincare ideality holds. Let's say you have F, a morphism between two such objects, X and Y, a morphism of small v stacks, satisfying the hypothesis that we always hold in the following. This is representable and this is quite important in what we call localist partial diamonds, just algebraic spaces for the pro-étale topology, plus some other technical hypotheses that I won't speak too much about it. Separated, compactifiable, which will always hold for the applications, don't worry, plus some finiteness, cohomological finiteness hypothesis on the cohomology of the geometric fibers of this morphism. This is to say the cohomology of geometric fiber is bounded uniformly by some constant. Okay. Under such type of hypothesis, just forget this if you don't know what it is, separated, compactifiable, and so on. The main point is it is representable. The Scholze define some relative cohomology with proper support from X to Y. Like that. Okay? This is a little bit technical already, and it proves the following theorem. Is that F lower strings has a right adjoint F upper shrink, and this uses some technical results about existence of right adjoints for morphism between two, let's say, infinite stable categories and so on and so on. But you don't care. I mean, you have a good intuition of what is relative cohomology with proper support for representable morphism. And the existence of this thing is in some sense formal, but also quite technical. Okay, thus we have a nice notion of relative cohomology with proper support and upper shrink pullback. And now we have the following definition. F, we say that F is cohomologically smooth. If F upper shrink is of the form F upper star tensor with some invertible object, L, thus F, this is invertible, which means that V locally this is isomorphic to the constant sheaf shifted by some degree, let's say n, for some n, an integer. Okay? So this is what I mean by relative Poincaré duality. I mean, okay? Thus you have a nice dualism complex for compactly supported cohomology.
You should ask that this was true of the base chain.
Yeah, okay. There are a lot of hypotheses. I mean, I don't. I will put the note of my talk on my webpage. I put a lot of things, but I don't want to speak about everything. Okay. We can split this in terms of the following two conditions. The first one, second one, is that there is a canonical map from F upper shrink lambda tensor F upper star something toward F upper shrink of something, and you ask that this is an isomorphism. Okay? That this is this condition of cohomologically smooth is equivalent to the following condition plus second condition is that F upper shrink lambda is invertible. In the preceding sense, V locally, it is a shift of the constant lambda modulo. Okay? And I will give examples now, I mean, of cohomologically smooth stuff. That's just a remark, I mean, which is very, very important for proving that things are cohomologically smooth, is that cohomologically smooth, and this is a great tool, is V local on the base. This is very important and extremely useful. Okay, just let me give you some examples. Let's do some concrete stuff. I mean, Huber has a notion, has a relative Poincaré duality theorem in his work on étale cohomology of adic spaces for usual rigid spaces. And this implies the following. This implies the following, that we can find easily some cohomologically smooth morphisms of a diamond. Let's say you have a morphism F between two classical rigid spaces over non-Archimedean field K, morphism of rigid spaces. And let's say that F is smooth. Thus if you apply Huber's relative Poincare-Identity theorem, this implies then that F diamond, from the diamond of X to the diamond of Y, is cohomologically smooth. Okay, thus any classical smooth morphism, and here in this case, in this Huber setting, you have a nice Jacobian criterion, you have tangent spaces, and so on. Thus any classically smooth morphism gives rise to a cohomologically smooth morphism of diamonds. Okay? But this is not enough for our work with Scholze. We need more than those examples. Let's go further. One very useful, let me give you some example too. Another example is the following. You take a perfectoid space of characteristic P, and you look, let's say, at an open ball, perfectoid open ball over S, like that. And this is, of course, cohomologically smooth. Thus you use this Huber's relative Poincare-Identity theorem to reduce to the classical case of classical rigid spaces by decompletion of the perfection and so on. That's easy. Okay, there is another case that is very useful. Let's say you have X, a morphism X between X and Y. Just let's say diamonds and so on, locally spatial diamonds. And let's say this one is cohomologically smooth. Okay? And suppose you have an action of a propy of a group K. This is a propy, profinite group, that is a free action over Y. That is to say the action of K is on X and it's trivial on Y. Okay? Then, this is easy to check. This implies that the quotient diamond of X by K toward Y is cohomologically smooth. Okay. So there is a way to construct new cohomologically smooth morphisms that don't come from the classical rigid setting in this way by taking quotient by a propy, free action by a profinite group. And this is really very useful. Okay? And here is a more interesting example that comes from Bungee. This is the case of Banach-Kolmé spaces. So if we are looking at Banach-Kolmé spaces associated to positive vector bundles, and sometimes strictly positive vector bundles. So let's say you have S characteristic P perfectoid space, and you take E. This is a vector bundle on the curve parameterized by S. The curve associated to S, and you suppose that E, I will write it, is strictly positive, which means that fiber-wise on S, the Ardan-Racine slopes of E are strictly positive. Okay. Then I can look at the Banach-Kolmé space of E. This is a diamond over S, and this is the relative cohomology. There's no H1. This is a global section of E. This is to say, to a space T over S, it associates the global sections of E pulled back to the curve parameterized by T. Okay? And then I say that this is cohomologically smooth. This is not evident. You have to use some KDA-Use results. Where you can do a dévissage to some multiple Banach-Kolmé spaces. Let me tell you how you can prove this quickly. There's the same type of statement with negative vector bundles, and you take the H1 instead of the H0, but we will focus on this one. Thus, how to prove this? Thus you have E, what I call a strictly vector bundle on X, the curve parameterized by S. And according to KDA-Liu, you have the following. This is not explicitly stated like that in KDA-Liu, but you can deduce it easily from this. Is that locally on S, there exists an exact sequence of vector bundle that you can find a resolution of E by two vector bundles, E prime and E second, where E second is fiber-wise semi-stable of slope lambda, that is d mod H, that is non-zero, and strictly between 0 and 1. And E prime is semi-stable of slope 0. Thus you have some difficult results in this work by KDA and Liu about resolution of vector bundles by some simpler vector bundles. And you can deduce from those results this type of results. Okay? And then you see from this exact sequence that in fact the Banach-Kolmé space, the space of global sections of E, is a Banach-Kolmé space of E second mod by BC of E prime. There is no H1 in this cohomology of relative H1 in the cohomology of E prime. Okay, you have this. But now, here, for the semi-stable vector bundle, fiber-wise semi-stable vector bundle with a slope strictly between 0 and 1, between 0 and 1 and different from 0, sorry, you can prove that this is locally on the base isomorphic to an open ball, perfectoid open ball over S. Okay? And this is a universal cover of a height H, that's the H that is here, and dimension D, formal p-divisible group. Okay, so there is a link between those Banach-Kolmé spaces and p-divisible groups where when the slopes are in between 0 and 1, and then those Banach-Kolmé spaces are representable by perfectoid spaces, and this one is slope 0, and slope 0. They are pro-étale locally on the base, isomorphic to some finite dimensional QP vector space. Okay? And then you can apply what you see on this board. You have a cohomologically smooth morphism, and you define it by a free action of a pro-P group. And you see, you can prove like that the Banach-Colmes space of a vector bundle that is strictly positive in terms of Hadron-Riemann slopes is cohomologically smooth over its base. Okay? And this is a linear case of what we want to do with Scholze. Because next, I'm going to look at, for example, the hierarchically closed subset of such things. Thus, this implies that the relative cohomology of E divided over S as a sheaf over S is cohomologically smooth. And this is the simplest example of what we want to do. Another example, I said it quickly, is the following. If E has strictly negative Hadron-Riemann slopes, fiber-wise on S, then you can look at BC of E, and this time this is not S0, this is the relative H1 of E. So this is over S, and this is cohomologically smooth. There's a dual statement where you permute positive slopes and negative slopes. Let me give you some example that is very useful. Let's say S is a tilting of some untilt S sharp. Then the Banach-Colmes space of O of -1. There is a canonical line bundle O of 1 on the curve, and you can look at its dual. This is GA diamond, GA over S, the untilt, sharp. You take its diamond, and you divide by QP. Okay, so this is unpro-P. And then you can apply the result that's here. You divide something that is cohomologically smooth, the diamond of something that is smooth, in the usual sense, like in Huber's work, and you obtain some cohomologically smooth thing. Okay? Okay, let's go further. Thus we have the following opt result with Scholze. I put opt result because with this generality, this is not true, a priori. We don't know how to prove it. But we can prove it in a lot of standard situations. Thus let's say you have C, an algebraically closed perfectoid field. Of characteristic. Okay? And we look at the curve X associated over C. And let's say we have Z. This is a smooth adic space. So this is a topologically of finite type. Thus we are in a standard setting of Huber's work, because this X, the curve associated to a perfectoid field like that, is a Noetherian object, that there is no danger. Okay, you have a smooth like that. And here this is a curve attached to C. And we are going to look at the following moduli problem. Let's say M. This is the moduli over space C. So this will be a V sheaf. Thus M of S is the following. This is morphisms F like that. Thus, we have this space Z over XC. You have the curve parameterized by S that sits over XC, and we look at morphism like that. F. There are sections of Z over the curve. That is to say, we look at relative sections of this smooth adic space over the curve, parameterized by S. Okay? Thus, we are doing some kind of Gromov-Witten theory. There's a fixed target, and we look at world morphism from a curve towards something that is fixed. Okay? And we need an hypothesis for cohomological smoothness, such that we have the following. And this is a Jacobian criterion. The Jacobian criterion is here. If I put back the tangent space, the relative tangent space of Z over the curve, this is a strictly positive vector bundle in the preceding sense. That is to say, it has strictly positive Ardern-Racine slopes, fiber-wise, on the base. Okay, the moduli is the following. There is a fixed smooth object of the curve, and we looked at the set of sections such that when you pull back the tangent space by this section, it is a strictly positive vector bundle. Let me give you some example. I spoke already before. This is the case when Z is just the geometric realization of the vector bundle. If you take Z to be the geometric realization of a vector bundle E, with E over XC and strictly positive in the preceding Ardern-Racine sense, then this moduli space is just BC of E. And this is smooth. This is cohomologically smooth over S, over spatie. Okay. I should say it, write it here. This is the Jacobian criterion. I will speak about it later, Jacobian criterion. Okay. And that's the op. In this setting, I spoke about the op result, is that we can prove in this setting that this moduli space M is cohomologically smooth over space. And this type of problem shows up a lot when you study Bungee and charts on Bungee, perfectly charts on Bungee. Everywhere you have this type of problem, moduli space that shows up. And the linear case is easy. I spoke about it before. When you work with GLN, you don't need this. You just need this type of result here. But for an orthogonal group, you need to look at quadrics inside Banach-Kolmé spaces, typically. Okay. Thus we are led with Scholze to introduce a new notion to prove this type of result. I mean, this is an opt result, but we can prove it in some special cases that are largely sufficient for what we need. To introduce a notion of formal smoothness in this context. And this notion is much easier to test on moduli spaces. Okay? That's what is this notion of formal smoothness. I will come back to the big board. This is a key point. in our results. As you will see, I will give you the definition and we'll say, yeah, this is a little bit like Grotownik definition of formal smoothness, but it's not. It's more a topological notion. This is very near the topological notion of a Euclidean neighborhood retract in the sense of Borsuk. Thus, we have the following definition. A morphism, let's say, of small V stacks or satisfying the preceding hypothesis or locally spatial diamonds, whatever, is formally smooth. If the following holds, each time I have a diagram like that, thus I have x over y, like that, and I look at something like that. This really looks like a Grotownik definition of formal smoothness, but we don't have infinitesimals in our setting because we are in the perfect weight world. But what is this immersion here? This is a Zariski closed immersion of affinoid perfect weight spaces. Then, for each diagram like that, there exists a map like that, and up to something, up to replacing S by an étal. So there is an étal localization that is possible, so that this map exists, by an étal neighborhood of S naught. S naught is Zariski closed in S. Thus, up to replacing S by an étal neighborhood of S naught, there exists a map that makes the following diagram compose. Okay. As you see, you don't have infinitesimals in the perfect weight world, but you have this notion makes sense. And I told you, this is a topological notion. Just let me give you a remark. This formal smoothness notion is local on X and Y, so there's no problem. And locally on X and Y, thus you can embed, let's say X and Y are affinoid perfect weight, for example. X in a closed ball over Y. This is Zariski closed. And let's say I is any set. Well, for applications, I is a finite set, but you can define perfectoid closed ball for any dimension. I mean, I may be infinite if you want. And then X over Y is formally smooth. If and only if, up to replacing be this ball over y by an eta neighborhood of x hood of x is up to some simple localization process, there exists a retraction. Thus you have this inclusion of x inside this ball, y. There exists a retraction from the ball to the closed subset, okay? And thus, this is what I told you. This is more a topological notion that is near the notion of an Euclidean neighborhood retrat in topology. I guess this was introduced by Borsuk, but I'm not sure. So this is more near than to a topological notion that Grothendieck's definition of formal smoothness. Okay? This is denoted in algebraic topology books by E and R. Typically in Dole's book on algebraic topology. And, okay. Okay, thus we are led with Scholze to introduce this notion of formal smoothness. But be careful. We cannot wait that this formal smoothness notion implies cohomologically smooth. I mean, in topology, the normal crossing divisor xy equals 0. That's the union of the two axes inside the two-dimensional phi space is an Euclidean neighborhood retract, but not cohomologically smooth. Okay? Thus, we are not waiting with Scholze to prove a statement like formally smooth implies cohomologically smooth. This is different. Nevertheless, this does not expect, because this normal crossing is of divisor for evident reason is not cohomologically smooth, does not expect that formally smooth implies cohomologically smooth. Okay. Nevertheless, we have the following. And this is the key point. If you have a morphism between two small V stacks like that, as before, that is formally smooth, plus some hypothesis and so on. I don't enter into the details. Then F, it was universally, locally, acyclic. Thus, Scholze will speak about this in his talk. And this implies, thus I told you that there are two conditions to be cohomologically smooth. 1.1 and 2, this implies that I guess this was 0.2, or I don't remember, or 0.1 maybe. Is that this relative complex given by relative Poincaré duality tensors with f upper star is the same as f upper star of something. This is an iso. An isomorphism. Okay. And then And then, thus, there is a reduction. F is cohomologically smooth if and only if this dualizing complex, relative dualizing complex, is invertible. As you see, for formally smooth morphisms, cohomological smoothness is reduced to this simpler statement. And some application is the following. This is what we use with Scholze. Let's say you have a morphism between x and y over some base S, where this F is like that, where the two spaces are cohomologically smooth. Here this is cohomologically smooth. Okay. Then, plus some finiteness hypothesis that are always satisfied in the setting of the stack of vector bundle on the curve. Then F formally smooth implies F cohomologically smooth. And this is a simple application of what I just said, that you just need to check that this dualizing complex is invertible. Just now, let's come back to this moduli space M I spoke about. Let me give you an example, what is called an algebraic diamond. Thus, you have this formal smoothness theorem. Thus, you have your space Z over the curve associated to a geometric point space C. Okay? And you suppose, I will do some assumption, put some assumption, this is the edification of some Z curve like that, with Z sits over the schematical curve the one we first defined with Fontaine. So this is quasi-projective smooth scheme. Okay. Thus, I suppose I come back to the setting of my modular space, my Gromov-Witten modular space M, and I suppose that the space Z I start with is the edification of some algebraic quasi-projective smooth variety that sits over the curve, which is always the case for applications, I mean. Okay? Then, the moduli space M I spoke before, the moduli of sections of Z over the curve, plus this Jacobian criterion that the pullback by this section of the tangent bundle of Z over the curve is strictly positive, is formally smooth. Thus you can prove this. And now you can put together this theorem here that formally smooth implies universally locally cyclic, which implies that to check cohomological smoothness is simpler, together with this theorem to obtain plenty of results about cohomological smoothness of moduli spaces that show up in the theory and that are not linear, that is to say, that are not Banach-Kolmé spaces. Let me give you an example of something you can check. Two things. Just to see concretely what it means, this Jacobian criterion. The simpler one is when Z is an affine space, is affine over the curve. Let me give you, let's say I pick some positive integer d, some homogeneous polynomial in n variables. It is homogeneous in S of degree, let's say delta. And then I can look at the Banach-Kolmé space of section of O of D on the curve. That this is what sometimes we call B, thus B is a Fontaine ring, and Frobenius equals pi to the D. Okay. And to the n, like that. Thus I have a homogeneous polynomial in n variable, and thus if I have n element in this BC of O of D, I can use the polynomial P to define a morphism to BC of O of delta times D, like that. Let's call this P tilde, this morphism. So this is a morphism of Banach-Kolmé spaces. And you see, now I'll look at the following algebraic diamond, that is Z. This is a zero locus of this polynomial morphism between two Banach-Kolmé spaces. As you see, we are in a situation where we apply this criterion with a space Z curve that is a Zariski closed subset in the geometric realization of a vector bundle. And if I pick some x that is a point in Z of C, okay, the C, let's say, is algebraically closed perfectoid field extension of Fp, then you can define a Jacobian morphism associated to the polynomial P at the point x, as usual, by your Jacobian matrix. And this is a linear map from O of D to the n to O of delta times D. This is a linear morphism of vector bundle over the curve attached to C. Thus each time I have a C point in this Zariski closed subset, I can define a Jacobian morphism that is a morphism of vector bundles like that. And then what we say is the following. Then if we define this smooth, this is a set of points in Z such that this Jacobian morphism is surjective with strictly positive kernel. So this is the Jacobian criterion for algebraic diamonds. I spoke in my title. Then this smooth, let's say, over the base par Fp is cohomologically smooth. Okay, and I will stop here. Thus, you see, we have a nice Jacobian criterion that we use a lot, not in this context, for more complicated stuff than that, for projective, tightly closed subset in projective bundles over the curve. But one particular case is like this. We can now do algebraic geometry, not in affine spaces, but in Banach-Kolmey spaces, and we have a good notion of smoothness in the sense of this cohomological smoothness for those algebraic diamonds. Okay, I stop here.
Okay, are there questions?
Can you give a hint why this positivity condition, Jacobian criterion, implies this ENR condition?
Oh, this is quite technical. I mean, you cut the curve in two parts. I mean, you take an affine cover of the curve. Okay. This is a complicated iterated process, approximation process. Yeah. Just one precision, if you place yourself in the context of Grothendieck, the suitable projective smooth curve over a field, this is trivial. I mean, that this is formally smooth over Grothendieck. It's a stupid exercise, but you have to do it first. Okay, that's your curve. You write it as a union of two affinoid subsets, okay, like that. And then, thus you have your section, thus you have this space D over XC, like that. And you have U1 and U2 inside this, thus you have Z1 and Z2, the pullback, and this. Okay, and formal smoothness for morphisms like that is very easy. Okay, because you are in an affinoid context, it's extremely easy. Thus, you can extend sections on an étal neighborhood like that. Okay, and then thus you extend sections, and then you try to reglue them. And this is why you use as the H1 of the tangent space is 0, but it's extremely difficult because this is you extend the section. And use this, I mean, I need 1 hour. I mean, it's 20 pages. It's 20 pages of proof. I mean, yes, you have your two sections, and here you will use that, of course, if you have a section of, let's say, Z1 over U1, like that, S1, then we use tubular neighborhood. That is to say, this is the starting point of everything. How does it work? Let's say E, let's say F rather, because there was an E before. This is S1, the pullback of the tangent bundle of Z1 over U1. Then you can embed, you have Z1, you can find a neighborhood of this section. Let's call it V1. I don't remember my notations. Over U1. You have your section here and here. I mean, what I say, that the neighborhood of the section, because we are in the affine setting, that is isomorphic to a neighborhood of the 0 section in the tangent bundle. Thus you have tubular neighborhoods. This is why we have to reduce to the affinoid case. It's not true. I mean, tubular neighborhoods is true in a differential geometry because you have a matrix. But it's false, it's complex algebraic geometry because the tangent the conormal exact sequence is not split in general over the curve. I mean, we already tried to use these tubular neighborhoods, but it doesn't work. Thus, you have to do the tubular neighborhood tricks over two affinoid subsets like that, and then you try to glue using, and it's quite long to